Let's get to Lauren Toomey. Lauren, good to have you with us. Lauren, formerly the public affairs spokesperson for Americans for Prosperity in Virginia. Now she has her own public affairs and political consulting firm. Lauren, great to have you. You're live here with me and Andrew Vehorn. So, Lauren, Andrew and I are here, and we're talking about the state of politics in Virginia. That's what we're focusing our day on. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on where you think the Republicans are. I know you've covered this in depth. You're a consultant now. You've got your own PR firm since leaving Americans for Prosperity of Virginia. What's your take, Lauren?
Absolutely. So, a lot to talk about here. Virginia.
Hey, you want to speak up a little, Lauren? Ken?
Are you there, John?
Yes. Speak into the
Okay,
into the phone.
Is that better?
Yes, better. Yes.
Okay. Virginia can essentially be split up right into several different states within our Commonwealth. It's such an interesting state. We never have an off year, which is fantastic and exciting, and also a little bit stressful every year when November comes around. I think my take on how this is going to go is, I think once the redistricting court order came down, we lost the House, right? There's a lot of seats that were absolute shoo-ins that are now not that and are more of a shoo-in for the left. And there are also a lot of folks who last election, if you remember, won on a very slim margin, much slimmer than they had ever won before. In certain cases, a coin toss, right? So those seats before the court order redistricting were in jeopardy. So we were already kind of pushing our luck with the House. I do think that we do have a good shot with the Senate, and here's why. Suburban millennial women, young moms in these outside of urban areas, right, are deciding elections. They've been deciding elections in Virginia across the country for the last few years. Now, within the Republican-held Senate, they've passed a lot of great legislation that has directly affected people's lives, specifically women. So talking about our telemedicine legislation that AFP worked on, that's something when we were looking at, who's that affecting the most. It's young moms, right? It's a young mom who wakes up at 3:00 in the morning, has two other kids. So wait a minute,
you think Republicans are going to turn the tide on suburban women, which they're losing by the hour across the country based on telemedicine.
I mean, no, I think it's a number.
Come on, Lauren.
I think it's the telemedicine legislation. I also think it's the comprehensive occupational licensing bill that put Virginia now at the number one state to do business in. We were number 7 2 years ago, and now we're number 1. I think that's going to help. Do I think it's an easy road? Absolutely not. What we're talking about a lot, and what this happens on the national level, are very extremes in conversation. So these moderate, kind of common sense women are not hearing anything that they find a place in the conversation for. That's the case with guns. That's the case with healthcare. That's the case with taxes. And the majority of women are not on either extreme, so they're just left out. And in this case, in the political culture that we have, if they don't like something the president tweets, they go and vote left. And that, combined with the redistricting, has us losing the House for sure, but an upward battle in the Senate. I think that Glenn Sturdivant, outside of Richmond, I think he's safe. I think it's going to be definitely a good run for him, but he's got a great campaign going, and he's been moderate. He's truly been representative of his district. So I see that, when the left looks at it, they can visualize that as a potential grab, but I don't really see it happening just in terms of how he's represented in his district.
So you think Sturdivant hangs on the win?
I do.
Okay, so let's say he does that. I'm predicting right now. I don't know. He's losing now, but there's still 60 days, right? There's a lot of time. So if Sturdivant wins, I don't see how the Republicans win the Dick Black seat. Andrew, do you?
What we were talking about off the air about the tolling issue, that's one of those local issues that can do that, but you've got to be able to get that message out. You've got to have the money to get that in people's mailboxes. You've got to have a get out the vote program, because that is the number one pickup for the Democrats. That's their easiest pickup in the Senate.
That's the one they've already mailed in.
Yeah, they've mailed that in. They're starting out with 20 seats.
Right. So they've already mailed that
Yeah.
in. So how does Higgins win that seat? How much is he raising money?
He's raised, I want to say, about $350,000. John Bell has raised almost $600,000. So that's enough to be competitive.
Right. But it would still be an uphill battle.
Absolutely, that's a tough district. That would have been a tough district for Dick Black to win again.
So if Sturdivant wins
Exactly.
and Bell wins, which is the chalk right now, that would be the chalk now. Although I do think Sturdivant's behind. If those two won, then it would be 2020.
Right, you'd still need Siobhan Donovan to win in Western Henrico, which
She's gonna
I
win.
think she will.
I think so too.
You've got Frank Wagner's seat down in Virginia Beach.
Yeah, I really can't see. I know that the Democrats think they're going to win that seat, Lauren, but I just cannot see a liberal, left-wing, progressive school teacher beating an Air Force pilot commander mom in a military district like the 7th, I think, right? The 7th.
Yeah.
Right, and folks are hanging their hat on looking at Tim Kaine's numbers against Corey Stewart last year. You got to think that was an anomaly. That was a base election for Republicans. You can look at Corey Stewart's numbers and think that is the minimum a Republican is going to get in that district ever.
Right.
It was. You can go back. I don't want to say decades, but election cycles, and you can, E.W. Jackson's numbers when he ran for lieutenant governor against Ralph Northam. That was a bedrock number of Republican votes. You knew that was where you kind of started at, and you were only going to go up from there.
Right. So, look, I mean, the bottom line is if Wagner was running for re-election, he would beat Cheryl Turpin by 12, right?
Well, remember, Wagner had a tough race 4 years ago.
Gary McCollum spent
and
all that money.
He did, but he had the lying on his resume about his military service that ultimately sunk him, so you don't know how that would have played out.
Right, you don't. Wagner ended up winning, I think, by 10. He won handily.
Right.
But I just, Lauren, I can't see that district voting for a very left-wing liberal school teacher over a military veteran mom who was a Navy pilot, commando fighter, and in Janet.
I agree
Higgins.
there.
Yeah. So I think the Republicans hold that. Go ahead.
I think that there's our memories in politics are very short, but we've kind of got ourselves on both the House and the Senate side in a little bit of a pickle. When we passed Medicaid expansion, you and I were on this show kind of talking about why it was good, why it was bad. You were saying it was good because we were going to be united and it would help us with, re-election, right? And whenever we do things that are politically expedient, right, we put politics over people, it always comes back and bites us in the butt. No one could have really anticipated the court-ordered redistricting, and now you have fractions of the base that we quite frankly needed to be 100% solid on, especially in the Senate, in those districts that are very vulnerable, that are saying, well, hold on, this one went back on his word. This is why we have Medicaid expansion, and it's just something to, to kind of, it's a very telling lesson, and history always repeats itself for these lawmakers, but, you're going into a very, very big uphill battle where you need your base plus more, and you fractioned out a little bit due to, putting politics over people. So I know you and I were going back and forth on that, but
no, we were going
you
at
had
it
your
on
reasons
that.
for supporting it, right?
Yes.
Mostly political, and it's not putting us in a good spot right now. At the House, like I said, I think the House we can save for next time.
Lauren taking on Godzilla here. If I can interpret what I'm reading between the lines here, Lauren Toomey, new public affairs consultant and your new political company, if I can read between the lines and interpret what you're saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems like what you're saying is, okay, Fredericks, you went with this Medicaid expansion thing, and you did this because you thought without it, Republicans can't win in 2019, and now you're going for universal background checks and red flags because without it, Republicans can't win because they can't get suburban moms. And what you're saying is actually that's backfiring because you've depressed the base that you're trying to turn out by trying to be politically expedient with guns and Medicare expansion. Is that your point?
I don't think I could have said it better myself. And here's the thing, when we're talking about, suburban women, those millennial moms, when we look at these conversations about health care, about gun violence, about Second Amendment rights, the extremes are really far. And so they're not finding not only a place for them in the conversation to discuss their common sense views. When they see politicians acting in their own self-interest, they're 1,000% disillusioned. And then they go on CNN or they watch any of the, fake news media and hear something negative about President Trump, associate that with all Republican lawmakers, and this is where we end up. So I think that demographic, specifically in Virginia, in places like Chesterfield, Virginia Beach, Northern Virginia especially, we're not fooling anyone. That's always been a grab, but they're more disillusioned than ever when they see politicians acting in their own self-interest, right? So that's where we have a really difficult time. I think that Republicans could do a lot better with framing the conversation, like you talked about in Northern Virginia with the tolling and getting your message out. Also on the positive legislation and things that have gone well in Virginia, the tax reform. The Senate passed an amazing tax reform bill this year, which we'll hopefully be seeing the benefits of around Election Day.
Wow. Okay,
helpful,
so you're in the wrong job. You're in the wrong job, Andrew. We just spent an hour, Lauren, complaining that the Republicans have no message, no unified message going into this election. And you, in 7 minutes, have articulated what their unifying message should be. So, even though the Republican Party of Virginia, I know, Lauren, even though the RPV only has $1,900 in the bank as of June 30th.
Oh, jeez.
Even though they've only got $1,900 cash money, and they have a Mr. Coffee pot that they got at a garage flea market sale in 1978, the last time I was there, and the roof leaks when it rains, and they do have two beepers. They do have two beepers. They should hire you. Right. I mean, you ought to be the spokesperson for them, because in 7 minutes you basically articulated a campaign message. They should hire you and put you out there. What do you think, Andrew?
I'm out
Tax
here right
cuts,
now,
no tolls.
Tax cuts, no tolls. Right? That's your message.
It'd have to be pro bono work, though.
Well, they got $1,900. Would you work for $1,900? That's all they got.
I don't know. I'd have to do some negotiating there, I think. What's unfortunate, when I look at Virginia, not only am I a resident here, but the Republican lawmakers, and especially in the Senate, especially this last session, have done some fantastic barrier-breaking, life-changing stuff for Virginians. And, we really got to tap into that demographic. I know there's always been the women problem, right, with Republicans and conservatives, and it's always been, I don't know how we talk to them. I don't know, what they think. They're very socially left, and most of them aren't.
We got to go.
Being left out of a lot of conversations.
We're at top of the hour, Lauren. I've got to go. I'm sorry. We went.
No problem.
Off. We spent too long in the weather, but as soon as I get you off, I'm going to text Jack Wilson, the chairman of the Republican Party of Virginia, and John Finley. I'm going to put him in a group text, and I'm going to say you guys need to hire Lauren Toomey as your spokesperson for the next 60 days to get out some kind of a coherent message. Lauren Toomey, I think she should be the spokesperson. Andrew, what do you think?
She's doing a better job than whoever is doing it now.
Hired, not fired.